Hey guys, welcome back to Detroit, Michigan. Lisa Martin and John Ferry are here live with theCUBE at KubeCon, Cloud Native Con North America. John, it's been a great day. This is day one of our coverage of 3 days of coverage. Kubernetes is growing up, it's maturing.
Yeah, we got 3 days of wall-to-wall coverage, all about Kubernetes. We're hearing about security, large scale, cloud native at scale. That's the big focus. This next segment is going to be really awesome. You have a fast-growing private company and a practitioner, big name, blue chip practitioner, building out next-gen cloud, first transforming, then building out the next level. This is classic, what we call super cloud-like interview. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to this.
Anytime we can talk about super cloud. All right, please welcome back one of our alumni. Haseeb Boujani is here, the CEO of RAFE. Great to see you. Santosh Pasula also joins us, the global head of cloud SRE at MassMutual. Guys, great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me.
So Haseeb, you've been on theCUBE many times. You were on just recently. With the momentum that's around us today, with the maturation of Kubernetes, the collaboration of the community, the recognition of the community, what are some of the things that you're excited about on day one of the show?
Wow, so many new companies. I mean, there are companies that I don't know who are here, and I live in this industry, and I'm seeing companies that I don't know, which is a good thing. I mean, it means that the community is growing. But at the same time, I'm also seeing another thing, which is I have met more enterprise representatives at this show than other KubeCons. Like when we hung out at, in Valencia, for example, or even other places, it hasn't been this many people, which means, and this is a good thing, that enterprises are now taking Kubernetes seriously. It's not a toy. It's not just for developers. It's enterprises who are now investing in Kubernetes as a foundational component, right, for their applications going forward. And that to me is very, very good.
Definitely becoming foundational.
Yeah.
Well, you guys got a great traction. We had many interviews at theCUBE, and you got a practitioner here with you. You guys are both pioneering kind of what I call the next gen cloud. First, you got to get through Gen 1, which you guys done at MassMutual extremely well. Take us through the story of your transformation, because you're at the front end now of that next inflection point, but take us through how you got here. You've had a lot of transformation success at MassMutual.
Right. So, I was actually talking about this topic a few minutes back, right? And the whole cloud journey in big companies, large financial institutions, healthcare industry, or insurance sector, it takes generations of leadership to get to that perfection level. And ideally, the cloud first strategy starts in, and then how do you standardize and optimize cloud, right? That's the second gen altogether, and then operationalization of the cloud. And especially if you're talking about Kubernetes, in the traditional world, almost every company is running middleware and their applications in middleware, and then containerization is a topic that came in, and Docker is basically the runtime containerization. So that came in first, and from Docker, eventually when companies started adopting Docker Swarm is one of the technologies that they adopted, and eventually when we were taking it to a more complicated application implementations or modernization efforts, that's when Kubernetes played a key role. And as Haseeb was pointing out, we never saw so many companies working on Kubernetes. So that should tell you one story, right? How fast Kubernetes is growing and how important it is for your cloud strategy. So.
And your success now, and what are you thinking about now? What's on your agenda now as you look forward? What's on your plate? What are you guys doing right now?
So we are past the stage of proof of concepts, proof of technologies, pilot implementations. We are actually playing it, the real game now. So in the past, I used a quote, hello world to real world. So we are actually playing in the real world, not in the hello world anymore. Now this is where the real-time challenges will pop up, right? So if you're talking about standardizing it, and then optimizing the cloud, and how do you put your governance structure in place? How do you make sure your regulations are met? The demands that come out of regulations are met, and how are you going to scale it? And while scaling, how are you going to keep up with all the governance and regulations that come with it? So we are in that stage today.
Haseeb, you talked about the great evolution of what's going on at MassMutual. Haseeb, talk a little bit about You mentioned one of the things that's surprising you about this KubeCon in Detroit is that you're seeing a lot more enterprise folks here. Who's deciding in the organization, in your customer conversations, who are the decision makers in terms of adoption of Kubernetes these days? Is that elevating?
Well, this guy. Right? It's usually, one of the things I'm seeing here, and John and I have talked about this in the past, this idea of a platform organization in enterprises. So consistently, what I'm seeing is, somebody, a CTO, CIO level, individual is making a decision. I have multiple internal BUs who are now modernizing applications. They're individually investing in DevOps, and this is not a good investment for my business. I'm going to centralize some of this capability so that we can all benefit together. And that team is essentially a platform organization, and they're making Kubernetes a shared services platform so that everybody else can come and sort of consume it. So what that means to us is our customer is a platform organization, and their customer is a developer. So we have to make two constituencies successful. Our customer, who's providing a multi-tenant platform, and then their customer, who's a developer. Both have to be happy. If you don't solve for both, constituencies, you're not going to be successful.
You're targeting the builder of the infrastructure and the consumer of that infrastructure.
Yes, sir. It has to be both. Exactly right. So that, look, honestly, that it takes iterations to figure these things out, right? But this is a consistent theme that I am seeing. In fact, what I would argue now is that every enterprise should be really stepping back and thinking about what is my platform strategy. Because if you don't have a platform strategy, you're going to have a bunch of different teams who are doing different things, and some will be successful, and look, some will not be. And that is not good for business.
Yeah, and Satish, I want to get to you. You mentioned your transformation was where you look forward, and your title, Global Head of Cloud SRE. Okay, so SRE, we all know, came from Google, right? Everyone wants to be like Google, but no one wants to be like Google, right? Because no one is Google. Google's a unique thing.
Only one
but
Google.
They had the dynamic and the power dynamic of one person to large-scale set of servers or infrastructure. That concept can be portable, but the situation isn't. So Borg became Kubernetes, that's inside baseball. So you're doing essentially what Google did at their scale, you're doing for MassMutual. That's right. Kind of what's happening. Is that kind of how I see it? And you guys are playing in there, partnering.
So I totally agree. Google introduced SRE, Site Reliability Engineering. And if you take the traditional transformation of the roles, right? In the past, it was called operations, and then DevOps came in, and then SRE is the new buzzword, and the future could be something like product engineering, right? And in this journey, here's what I tell folks on my side, like what worked for Google might not work for a financial company, might not work for an insurance company. So it's okay to use the word SRE, but at the end of the day, that SRE has to be tailored down to your requirements and the customers that you serve and the technology that you serve. Yep.
And this is why I'm coming back to this platform engineering. At the end of the day, I think SRE just translates to you're going to have a platform engineering team. Because you got to enable developers to be producing more code, faster, better, cheaper, guardrails, policy, so that it's kind of becoming you serve the business, which is now the developers. IT used to serve the business back in the old days. Hey, the IT serves the business, which was a terminal.
Which is actually true now.
The new IT serves the developers, which is the business.
Which is the business.
If digital transformation goes to completion, the company is the app.
Yep. And the hard line between development and operations, right? So that's thinning down over the time. That line might disappear, and that's where SRE is fitting in.
Yeah, and then building platform engineering to scale the enablement up. What is the key challenges? You guys are both building out together this new transformational direction. What's new and what's the same? The same is probably the business results, but what's the new dynamic involved in rolling it out and making people successful? You got the two constituents, the builders of the infrastructures and the consumers of the services on the other side. What's the new thing?
So the new thing, if I may go first,
please,
right?
Please.
So the faster market to value, right, that we are bringing to the table, that's very important. Business has an idea. How do you get that idea implemented in terms of technology and take it into real time? So that journey, we have cut it down, right? With technologies like Kubernetes, it makes an IT person's life so easy that they can speed up the process in a traditional way. What used to take like a year or 6 months can be done in a month today, or less than that, right? So there's definitely speed, velocity, agility in general, and then flexibility, and then the automation that we put in, especially if you have to maintain like thousands of clusters. These are today, like, it is possible to make that happen with a click of a button. In the past, it used to take like, probably, 100-person team, an operational team to do it, and a lot of time, but that automation is happening, and we can get into the technology as much as possible, but blueprinting and all that stuff made it possible.
We'll save that for another interview. We'll do a deep dive.
But the end user on the other end, the consumer, doesn't have the patience that they once had, right? It's,
exactly.
I want this in my lab now.
Now.
How does the culture of MassMutual, how has it evolved to be able to deliver the velocity that your customers are demanding?
So if once in a while, it's important to step yourself into the customer's shoes and think it from their perspective. Business does not care how you're running your IT shop. What they care about is your stability of the product and the efficiencies of the product, and how easy it is to reach out to the customers and how well we are serving the customers, right? So whether I'm implementing Docker in the background, Docker Swarm or Kubernetes, business doesn't even care about it. What they really care about it is, if your environment goes down, it's a problem. And if your environment or if your solution is not as efficient as the business needs, that's the problem, right? So at that point, the business will step in. So our job is to make sure, from a technology perspective, how fast you can implement it and how efficiently you can implement it. And at the same time, how do you play within the guardrails of security and compliance?
So I was going to ask you if you have VMware in your environment, because a lot of clients compare what vCenter does for Kubernetes is really needed. And I think that's what you guys got going on. I can say that you're the vCenter of Kubernetes. I mean, as a metaphor, a place to manage it all, is all over one pane of glass, so to speak. Is that how you see success in your environment?
So virtualization has gone a long way. Where we started what we call bare metal servers, and then we virtualized operating systems. Now we are virtualizing applications, and we are virtualizing platforms as well, right? So that's where Kubernetes plays a key.
So you see the need for a vCenter-like thing for Kubernetes?
There's definitely a need in the market. The way you need to think is like, let's say there is an insurance company who actually implemented it. And they gain the market advantage, right? Now the competition wants to do it as well, right? So there's definitely a virtualization of application layer that's very critical, and it's a critical component of cloud strategy as a whole.
See, you're too humble to say it. I'll say you're like the vCenter of Kubernetes. Explain what that means in your term. If I said that to you, what would you react? How would you react to that? Would you say BS, or would you say on point?
Maybe we should think about, what does vCenter do today, right? So in my opinion, by the way, vCenter, in my opinion, is one of the best platforms ever built. Like, it's the best platform, in my opinion, ever built. VMware did an amazing job because they took an IT engineer and they made him now be able to do storage management, networking management, VMs, multi-tenancy, access management, audit. Everything that you need to run a data center, you can do from essentially single platform.
From a utility standpoint, home run.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Because you are now able to empower people to do way more. Well, why are we not doing that for Kubernetes? So the premise behind Rafe was, I should have IT engineers, same engineers, now they should be able to run fleets of clusters. That's what people at MassMutual are able to do now, right? So to that end now, you need cluster management, you need access management, you need blueprinting, you need policy management, you need all of these things that have happened before. Chargebacks, they used to happen in vCenter, now they need to happen in other platforms, but for Kubernetes. So do we do many of the things that vCenter does? Yes.
Kinda, yeah.
Are we a vCenter for Kubernetes?
No.
That is a John Furrier question.
All right, well, the speculation really comes back down to the earlier speed question. If you can take away the complexity and not make it more steps or change a tool chain or do something, then the devs move faster. And the service layer that serves the business, the new organization, has to enable speed. So this is becoming a real discussion point in the industry, is that, oh yeah, we got new tools, look at the shiny new toy. But if it doesn't move the needle, does it help productivity for developers? And does it actually scale up the enablement? That's the question. So I'm sure you guys are thinking about this a lot. What's your reaction?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that just hit my mind is think about the hoteling industry before Airbnb and after Airbnb, right? Or the taxi industry, before Uber and after Uber, right? So if I'm providing a platform, a Kubernetes platform for my application folks or for my application partners, they have everything ready. All they need to do is build their application and deploy it and run it, right? They don't have to worry about provisioning of the servers and then building the middleware on top of it and then do a bunch of testing to make sure they iron out all the compatibility issues and whatnot.
Yep.
Now today all I say is hey, we have a platform built for you. You just build your application and then deploy it in a development environment. That's where you put all the pieces of puzzle together, make sure you see your application working, and then the next thing that you do is go to
Ship it.
production. Ship it to production.
Press
go.
button
And ship it to production.
Release it.
Yeah. So
that's the nirvana, but we're there. I mean, we're there now. We're there. So we need to see the future, because if that's the case, then the developers are the business. They have to be coding more features. They have to react to customers. They might see new business opportunities from a revenue standpoint that could be creatively built. Got low code, no code, headless systems. These things are happening where there's, I call it the architectureless environment, where it's you don't need architecture, it's already happening.
Yeah, and on top of it, if someone has an idea, they want to implement an idea real quick, right? So how do you do it, right? And you don't have to struggle building an environment to implement your idea and test it in real time, right? So from an innovation perspective, agility plays a key role, and that's where the Kubernetes platforms like Kubernetes plays.
Lisa, when we talked to Andy Jassy when he was the CEO of AWS, either one-on-one or on theCUBE, he always said, and this is kind of happening, companies are going to be builders, where it's not just utility. You need that table stakes to enable that new business idea. And so his last keynote, he did this big thing think like your developers are the next entrepreneurial revenue generators. I think starting to see that. What do you think about that? Do you see that coming sooner than later, or is that in sight, or is that still ways away?
I think it's already happening at a certain level. Now the question comes back to taking it to the reality, right? I mean, you can do your proof of concept, proof of technologies, and then prove it out hey, I got a new idea. This idea is great.
Yeah.
It's to the business advantage, right? But we really want to see it in production, live, where your customers are actually using it.
And the board meetings, hey, we got a new idea that came in, generating more revenue. Where'd that come from? Agile developer. Again, this is real.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, I think both of you gentlemen said a word as you were talking. You used the word guardrails. Right? I think we're talking about agility, but the really important thing is, look, these are enterprises, right? They have certain expectations. Guardrails is key, right? So it's automation with the guardrails.
Yep.
Guardrails are like children, shouldn't be hurt. They're seen but not heard. Developers don't care about guardrails; they just want to go fast.
They also bounce around a little bit off the guardrails.
Yeah. One thing we know that's not going to slow down is the expectations, right, of all the consumers of this, the devs, the business. The business top line, and of course the customers. So the ability to really, as your website says, make life easy for platform teams is not trivial. And clearly what you guys are talking about here is you're really an enabler of those platform teams, it sounds like to me.
Yep.
So great work, guys. Thank you so much for both coming on the program, talking about what you're doing together, how you're seeing the evolution of Kubernetes, why, and really what the focus should be on those platform teams. We appreciate all your time and your insights.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for
Our
having me.
pleasure. For our guests and for John Furrier, I'm Lisa Martin. You're watching theCUBE live, KubeCon, Cloud Native Con from Detroit. We'll be back with our next guest in just a minute, so stick around.